Welcome to the most overrated, underappreciated, most viewed, underviewed podcast of all time. Welcome to the Prince of Fresh Air. This is your host. You already know the most charismatic man in entertainment. Now, before we get into this episode, I just want to make a quick note. Right now is a difficult time for America, especially women, with the Supreme Court ruling on abortion. And first and foremost, I want to say, me and my guest Dimitri are advocates and we stand for women during this difficult time. And I think no matter where you are on this issue, what side you on, it doesn't matter. I think at this point, just as humans, we need to band together and stand for women during this time and let the government know enough is enough. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about this controversial topic that got athletes, celebrities, politicians, and even the average citizen talking. Because we all got a mother, a cousin, a sister, an aunt who may be impacted by this. And so we're going to be hitting this conversation from different angles, because everybody has different opinions. So we're going to be addressing some of those opinions that I've seen. But I want you to know, for the women who's listening and for all the women around the world, we stand with you. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and you keep this conversation going, because this is the time that you use your voice to stand up and send a message. So let's get into the action. Let's get into this episode. And 3, 2, I didn't say 1 yet. 1. Man, it's been a rough week for America, especially for women. A lot of things has been happening in the news, but this one in particular stood out because of the controversy that came out of this ruling. So without further ado, let's talk about this because, a lot of people has chimed in, a lot of people have opinions, and a lot of people are breaking this down into, pro-life and, pro-abortion and a bunch of other things. So before I get into this topic, let me ask you, you heard of the ruling. What do you think about the Supreme Court's decision?
I feel like the government needs to be in service to its citizens rather than its citizens being in service to the government. I feel like it's unconstitutional, and clearly it is because they overturned a constitutional right. So it's like, well, what's the purpose of having a constitution when, these things can be overturned? I think that the government needs to kind of stay out of people's business in terms of that. I don't think that it's anyone's right to, or it's anyone's authority to say what women should and shouldn't do with their bodies, because at the end of the day, it's a very black and white, cut and dry situation to talk about, although complex. And I feel like it's not for people to talk about. And I hate that, women have to put themselves out there who've been through that, or who might be going through that right now and live in a state where, abortion is now illegal. So, I don't agree with it at all.
Yeah, man. Like I said, this topic is multi-layered, and let me first say, I know a lot of people might say, there's two guys talking about it, but I don't think us not being female doesn't mean we don't have empathy for them. But one of the reasons why I said this is controversial is because, a lot of people are advocating for women, but then there's the other side where there's some women who actually agree with the ruling. And so let me back up before I get into all of that, because we're gonna hit a couple different talking points here. So for people who don't know what Roe versus Wade was, it's a court case back in the 1970s, 1980s, that gave women the right to an abortion. It's their choice, it's their body, they can make that right. And so the Supreme Court decided to have another look at the situation. And one of the cases that stood out to me was that Wednesday of last week, they had an oral argument in the Supreme Court about a previous ruling that challenged the Mississippi restrictive abortion law. And so Mississippi, what that law entails is that It prohibits abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, and a lot of states have that kind of policy where up until a certain point in a woman's term or trimester, abortions aren't or shouldn't be legal. Um, how do you feel about that part?
What? How do I feel about what?
How do you feel about states? This is separate from the actual Supreme Court ruling, but how do you feel about states restricting abortion up until a certain point of a woman's trimester or term when they carry pregnancy? Because like I was mentioning, Mississippi, for instance, have a law where up until 15 weeks, anytime after that, you can't have an abortion for women. Do you think that's right, or do you think that's
I
unfair?
don't. I don't agree with it. These people who are making these, policies, laws, and restrictions, and what have you, these are not people who are affected by these things or who are going through, what said people are going through. So, who makes them? What gives them the right to kind of make those types of decisions? Which is why I feel like the government, as we know it right now, or the way that things are, is not working, and it's not for the people like you think that it is. See, a lot of that stuff is kind of clouded in like political jargon and complex verbiage, and people don't even really know what's going on. But at the end of the day, it's like you're voting for these local politicians, state politicians, federal politicians, and so on and so forth, and none of their decisions reflects the people that elected them, if you get what I'm saying. So I don't agree with it.
Yeah, and this is a topic that I want to talk about because, like I said, I watch a lot of videos, news articles, and I read, different pieces about this where there is this court decision by the Supreme Court. It comes down to, whether you agree with life or not. And that's not exactly how I feel, but there are people who are a support of this law because they feel like the moment contraception happens, that the is God's plan now. That child is someone's life, and there's no right for someone to take advantage or take away that life. Um, how do you feel about people? Because there are a lot of people chiming in about this, and there are a lot of people who actually agree with this ruling. Do you think that we should dumb down this type of law to whether you're pro-life or pro-choice?
I feel like it's no one's damn business. I mean, I get this question. I mean, like sometimes you might talk to a girl and so I ask you like, well, what's your opinion on this, on that? And my thing is, it's not my place to even really have an opinion about what a woman chooses to do in one of the most like vulnerable moments or important moments of her entire life. You don't know how that pregnancy is going to affect her, physically, mentally, emotionally. You don't know what's going on. There's like so many different variables for a woman to consider when she finds out that she's pregnant. So it's just like people shouldn't have an opinion on that. Like it's just like sensitive information. It's kind of almost to the point where like I feel uncomfortable talking about it because it's none of my damn business. You know what I mean? So when people are like, why there's such a debacle over this is weird. And I think people need to really kind of check the moral ground that they stand on. What's right for somebody else might not be right for you, but just live your life according to your own particular beliefs, but don't impose those beliefs on someone else because you don't know what's going on with them. So me, to really kind of break it down, like if I was in charge, there would be no laws about abortion because again, it's no one's business. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And it really comes down to I was reading a piece by New York Times where situations like this is exactly why politics is such a big and divisive topic in America, because it really is a political game. This abortion law and talk is all a political game. And one of the things I was reading was a lot of Republican senators or Republican people in office in Republican states already lined up to ban abortions in a state. And a couple of one of the senators, one of his quotes was, he praised the pro-life movement that included millions of volunteers, non-partisan organizations, and lawmakers that all joined together to stand up for the rights of the unborn, who are the most vulnerable amongst us. And like I said, there's a lot of people who feel that, you know, abortions are not right because you're ending a new baby's life, a new life in general. Um, do you? It, it's a tough topic to talk about. But do you feel? I'm just going to ask you: do you feel that uh, the moment a man and a woman, conceive, um, the moment our genetics meet with their genetics, that's a life and it shouldn't be touched with?
I don't really want to answer that question. I like I said, my thing is when those things happen, right? You and your girl, couples, what have you. When people choose to have unprotected sex, and the situation comes to as to whether or not like she's pregnant, or you find out that she's pregnant, at that point, whatever happens between a man and a woman at that point is between that man and that woman. So me personally, it doesn't matter what I think, because I will never get pregnant in my entire life. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's not for me to really even decide, because us as men, we don't have to carry that. A woman gets pregnant, she carries that for 9 months. You know what I'm saying? And that's not like, I don't know too many women that are like, oh my God, my pregnancy, was so fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know we all have an idea as to how hard it is on women. So it's like, you make it like, and I'm not saying like discussions like these are necessary, but to an extent, because I feel like for women who have been through that, or for women who, are in relationships where, they're sexually active, and these things can happen. It's like it's like almost in a way, it's like it's creating pressure. It's making it worse for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's such a very private discussion that I think like that it's like something like that I can only talk to about like with a woman. You know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
even then, it's like it's whatever she feels. And then I as a boyfriend, I'm just gonna support that. But I'm not gonna have an opinion. Like, yeah, like a girl would probably be better suited to answer that question.
Oh, absolutely. And the only reason why I ask you is, so I don't know if you watch Steven Crowder Change My Mind on
No.
YouTube. Very popular series that he has. His videos get 30 million views every time he do them. And one of the Change My Mind segments he had was pro life versus you know pro choice. And so typically pro choice leans more toward women, as women's bodies, they can make that choice. And one of the things he talked about was that a lot of people feel that as men we get no say so, and it's not right, because at the end of the day, you know, we are going to be potential fathers in that situation. And again, for me, that I'm all just covering different bases. Everybody has different arguments, so that's why I'm talking about different scenarios. But a lot of men and some women feel like men should have a say so on this as well, because at the end of the day, you're taking his choice away if you just say it's only up to women. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like at the end of the day it's still their choice no matter what?
Well, ultimately, it's their bodies. You have conversations to ultimately decide like what would be the best for, the two of you in a relationship. But ultimately, it's her decision at the end of the day. Um, Obviously it's like, let's say like if you're dating somebody, she gets pregnant, you want to keep it, but she doesn't, that's a conversation for you guys to have. I feel like ultimately there should be some sort of same page that both parties involved can meet on. And so what I'm saying, so moving forward, whatever happens, at least there was some sort of dialogue where that man's voice was heard and his opinions were considered.
Right. And I agree with that. And the reason I brought it up, because I remember I was watching Dave Chappelle, his not the last one he did, the one previous to that. I think that was in 2019. he actually made a comment about that because he was saying that a lot of people told him he has no right to speak on abortion, and he was like, okay, well, if my choice, if she have the choice whether to keep that baby or not, then I have the choice not to pay child support or be on child support or be there for the kid if I don't want it. And that split the crowd because some people like, really, you feel that way? And then there's some people like, yeah, I agree. Some men feel like if I get no choice in the say so, that at the end of the day, if she gets the choice, then I should have a choice too, whether I want to be there or not. So that's why I brought that up. And speaking of abortion laws, ever since this new ruling went into effect, 13 states immediately jumped on it, and they already made their own abortion laws for their states because with this Supreme Court ruling, it is given the states the opportunity whether they want to ban abortions, they want to limit the terms that people can abort up to. So let's say New York says you only can abort up until 14 weeks in your pregnancy, or states don't have to do it at all. But at least 22 states are likely to institute the bans, according to NBC News. And a lot of other sources are saying that up to 26 states are considering certain or likely laws to ban abortions or make some type of law about it. I mean, do you really feel like this is a violation of a woman's human right and a woman's choice, or do you feel like some other people feel like that baby's life is just as important as that woman's, and it's not her choice to decide whether that baby gets to live or not? How do you feel about that?
Anytime some outside authority tries to take free will out of someone else's hands, like choices that don't really affect like the general public, like a woman is not committing a crime or something like that, that I have a problem with. If I'm not somebody's dad or something like that, it's not my place to try to tell somebody what they feel is best for them, especially we're talking about adults here. It's not like we're saying like, we're talking about little kids or something like that who can't take care of themselves. We have people who have their own beliefs, who've lived their lives, they take care of themselves, and then they generally only really have themselves to answer to. So who are these people who are they to say what a woman should and should not do? There are certain cases where, a woman could have like an ectopic pregnancy where like the cell like is stuck at a certain spot. Now, forgive me, like I'm not 100% sure the terminology, but there are like a lot of risks if a woman decides to go on with that pregnancy as to where it could become fatal. And then she has to make a decision. You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of different, medical reasons as to why, it might necessitate, an abortion. So who is an elected official or whomever these people are, who are they to try to impede someone's right to, what I'm saying? Like look after their own well-being and their own health, because one of those things, one of the worst things that a man could ever go through is like, you're having a baby, with a woman, and then like she dies giving birth.
Right.
These things happen. Like these things happen. Like you never know. Like when it comes to pregnancy, it's like every woman's body is different. It's like there's some women who can have like 12 kids, and then there's some women who they have one kid and they draw the line at that because their experience was so like arduous and terrible. So it's like, who would I be as an elected official? Like, yeah, she can't do that. Like, who am I? Who am I? So people really need to look at the government and then really see the things that they're doing and like the constitutional rights that they're going out of the way to overturn, to kind of give themselves like a moral pat on the back, or for them to feel good about their own personal moral compass.
Oh, absolutely. And let me first start off by saying this. I do think that the government is all up in our Kool-Aid too much. I do want to admit that. And I'm a touch on the government a little later on. But one of the common arguments that I hear from, people who are for pro-life, right? they push back on the statement. Like a lot of times people will say, what about women who are raped or victims of sexual assault or incest, right? They deserve the right to, get an abortion because they got a crime committed against them. But some people push back on that. It's like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, there are people who abuse this thing because they don't want to buy the necessarily way they don't want to buy the things that would prevent these situations like condoms, birth control, plan B, whatever the case may be. People are just having unprotected sex with no consequences, and then when they regret it, they just run to an abortion clinic. That's what a lot of people think, that people use abortion as some type of uh, way to uh, you know not take full responsibility for their actions in the bedroom. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like that is an actual argument, or do you just feel like people are being ignorant?
I feel like people are being nosy, man. Like there's just no way around it. Like what someone else is doing in the confines of their relationship is none of my damn business. Like I really don't understand why people are so fixated on trying to tell people what to do. Regardless, like even if that was the case, where a couple was just having unprotected sex, and then they just didn't get the plan B in time, and then they, what I'm saying, like that's on them. I'm not like that's none of my business. So it's like, why am I gonna say, oh well, you guys are not being responsible or this and that? It's none of my damn business. If it's, let's say, if I don't believe in those types of things happening, then I'll just make sure in my own life that those things will happen. You get what I'm saying? So it's
Right.
like if you're somebody that is, anti-abortion, right? Or if you're somebody that is for abortion, the life that you live will reflect those choices. But what somebody else is doing has nothing to do with you. It's like the reason why we have so much conflict in this world anyways, because we're all up in each other's business, always trying to impose our will onto somebody else's life. That's what breeds conflict. Nobody will be saying anything if they didn't overturn what's been there for about a decade or so. You know what I'm saying? Like for decades, I should say, because wasn't Roe versus Wade, like when was that decision made again? Hold on, let me see.
But the Roe versus
like the original. So like the
that
original,
was 1973.
Exactly. So decades. Yeah. So I'm correct. So them just choosing to overturn that, it's just like, look, man, like you're opening up a can of worms. And this is my thing. These elected officials should not be making these choices. What I would feel better about is at least we shouldn't be only voting for the damn elected officials and then they just decide to make these decisions. We should be voting for the decisions that they make. So you ask the public to go out and vote for this particular topic. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, should abortions be legal or should abortions be illegal? The general public, it will then be their responsibility or our responsibility to go out and vote. You see what I'm saying? The only time people should be voting is not just to get these people in office. Like that's whack. It's like you attend a Trump rally or a Biden rally, everybody's just standing around listening to one person talk. None of these attendees are ever heard. So that's what I'm saying. It's like that's why you have so many people who are upset, is because their voices were not heard. And you got these old ass 65-year-old, 75-year-old, 80-year-old, politicians who've been in these political seats for 20, 30, 40 fucking years. And then it's like they never had not one conversation with the average person. Like, have these people ever gone to, like, this is my thing. It's like, if I'm an elected, official, and then I'm one of the people that I'm going out and I'm basically I'm an integral part as far as like the decision that's ultimately being made. Go to a damn clinic. Go sit and talk to people who are actually going through it. Go there for a couple of days. I bet you they're going to be like, yo, like, I shouldn't be making these decisions, because you don't know what's going on with people. You don't know like what women go through, what men go through who are part of that process. So it's just like, yo, like, just stay out of it. Stay out of it. The way that these decisions are being made, it is not working, because in the Constitution, it says we the people. They're not talking about citizens. They're talking about the people that get elected And those are the people that are hurt because they're the ones in the boardrooms. Can you say that there was one civilian that was in the building when they ultimately overturned that?
Nope.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's
besides a court reporter, maybe.
Yeah, like it's some form of journalistic media. It's obsolete. It's not working. If I had my way, you pose the question, then people go out to vote at specific areas. That's it. Just like how everybody wants to get all up and then vote for presidents and stuff like that. Well, people need to go and vote for the legislation.
Yep.
Facts. Facts. That's how you solve the problem. Then I bet you society would be less angry because we actually have a say in what's going on. This society don't have a say in what's going on. So it's like we can have these conversations and things like that. People can argue on the internet all they want, but at the end of the day, that's just to compensate for not having a say in what's actually going on. Therefore, this is not a democracy.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm gonna touch on that. I want to mention this too. And the sad part about this ruling is that it is definitely going to affect the healthcare system, because you know why? In the states that do provide or who are going to make abortion laws and make abortions legal in their states, gynecologists, emergency room doctors, any type of physician that take care of pregnant people or try to provide or refer people to an abortion clinic or whatever the case may be, help them out in a situation. At the end of the day, these people are going to get targeted. You know why? Because the government is going to say, you know what, we made the ruling, but you know how some people are, if they feel morally that they want to help somebody in a situation that they don't want to carry on with their pregnancy, they're going to get hit with criminal charges, fines, lose their license, face jail time. And now people are in a dilemma where it's like, I want to help this teenage girl. I want to help this lady with a high risk pregnancy, or someone who suffered sexual assault. I can't help you no more, because at the end of the day, if I help you, I could be sentenced to jail. I'll lose my license. How am I going to provide for my family? And this is why I did a podcast before about politics. And this is why I say politics, at the end of the day, is all politics. And people need to speak up and actually vote. And I'm not talking about just, like you said, the presidential election, because there's much more people involved than the president. And even in this case, Joe Biden has no say-so in this ruling. He can't overturn it. He can't do nothing about it. And this is why our government, first of all, this is an unbalance of power, because the Supreme Court has high power, but they're not the ones who make the laws. The legislators do. And even then, with this ruling, the Supreme Court has the end all be all say so on this matter. And this is why I always tell people, make an informed vote. I agree with voting, but make sure it's an informed vote, because a lot of people, tend to, if I'm a Democrat, I'm gonna just vote for Democrat. And if I'm a Republican, I'm only going to vote for Republican. And you see where that's led us. People need to vouch and study and understand who these people they're putting in power, because you might vote for the most popular candidate, but just because he's popular don't mean he's looking out for your best interest. Yep. And a lot of these politicians, they don't care about us. They care about fattening their pockets and rule and running this country. And this is why I feel like the government has too much power, because they know people at the end of the day don't really care about what they're going to do until it happens. You know what I'm saying? How many times we see in history, even in recent memory, we see these candidates getting elected because they're popular, or because people despise the other person so much that, Trump, I'm making that assumption. People are just voting based off popularity. And now we're stuck in a situation where what can we do? You know what I'm saying? So people need to go out there and actually vet for the people they're voting for, and don't just blindly vote because he says something better on Twitter than the other person. You know what I'm saying? Because politicians are smooth talkers, just like me. I'll admit I'm a smooth talker, but politicians are smooth talkers. They know what to say to get their way into the building, get their way into the room. And then once they get into the room, they don't care. They don't do a goddamn thing for us besides fatten up their pockets, go on vacations, and make make decisions without consulting the American people. That's the part that annoys me, is that these people are getting voted in because people aren't making informed votes. And even if people do make informed votes, let's say the candidate don't work out, right? Let's say, 3 years, I think, is usually the term for anybody less than the president. It's favoritism in politics. So we may not like them, but if he knows the guy who overruns the Supreme Court and has the powers to be who he handshakes and rub elbows with, he'll stay in office and things will never change. That's why I personally feel like they need to make an age restriction law, because why are 80-something-year-old people who are probably racist, sexist, homophobic running this country still? I just don't get it.
Well, look, what we need is a libertarian government. And by definition, that's an advocate or supporter of a political philosophy that advocates only minimal state intervention in the free market and the private lives of citizens. That's what we need. That's what we need. Rest in peace, John McAfee. He used to talk about that a lot.
Matt, and this is one of the things, I watched George Carlin, famous comedian, passed away, a while ago. And this dude was phenomenal at predicting the future. He talked about how there was going to be a pandemic that happened that plagued the American people. He talked about how the government has too much power and that people need to actually go out there and vote. And for me, voting for the president is one thing. Go out there for the state representatives. You know what I'm saying? When your state is, looking for a new candidate to be a mayor or to be a state legislator, go out there and vote for them, because people always think that the president is the end all be all. No, because if you live in California, Joe Biden he's not going to make a law for California. The mayor is. And that's why you have to go out there and vote for these people who run your city, that runs your state, because these are the people that you're going to have to look up to when, laws like this happen. Because the Supreme Court is leaving it up to the state. Well, if you have a mayor that, he's like, yeah, you're not getting no abortion, you ain't doing nothing, now you stuck. You can move states, but how many people with kids and families want to just up and move out of a state? So that's why I said, like, people need to actually vote, and do everything. You got to vote for everybody, from the state to the president, to the Supreme Court justice, to everything, because all these people matter. And even then, I still agree with you. We could do all of this and these people still make every decision that they want. And it's because we don't hold them accountable for it. And I think this is the first time people are actually up in arms and actually want to stand up and say something about that.
But what does that ever really amount to? In this day and age, and maybe because it's women and we're talking about not just, black women, we're talking about white women and things like that. So maybe, it'll be heard and things like that. But what does, this ever really truly amount to? Because at the end of the day, the government creates law, and then usually what they say goes, and then that's it. That's it. Perhaps, like I said, for, white women and, white people, they'll listen to them because ultimately this is their country, and I would err on the side of saying that this whole overturning of Roe versus Wade was for white people anyway. So, I don't know if you heard that, but it's true.
Yeah.
At a Trump rally, I don't know this woman's name, but she was saying that the overturning was a victory for white life. And apparently the people or the women that actually go and get abortions, about 40% of them are Caucasian women, are white women. So what does that tell you? And look at the states that it's illegal now. So that's all I'm saying. It's smoke and mirrors, man. Smoke and mirrors.
It is smoke and mirrors. And my thing for me is there's a lot of people with this I don't care attitude. Now, I'll be the first to admit I don't really vote. And that's because that's just my belief. I feel like politics is all just a scam in general, right? But there's some people at the end of the day, I do care. That's why I talk about, candidates and stuff like that. But there's some people who don't care at all. They only care about, making money, taking care of their family, and that's it. And then, I'm not here to, judge people for doing that, because that's most of the people that live the American dream, make money, take care of their family. But now, when your family is about to get, busted up, have effects like this situation, now it's forcing people to actually reconsider that stance of I don't care. Because now you actually do care, because now your wife, your sister, your mother, your aunt, these women are being impacted at a tremendous rate. And I feel bad for women right now, because, we got to fight our battles at each time. But I remember Dave Chappelle said this. Said American people are stupid. No, I take that back. It wasn't him. It was somebody else. I can't remember the name. But he was saying that American people are stupid. And the reason why he felt that way is because we don't care about what happens in these offices until something happens. And we shouldn't be waiting until they make a law like this, or something like, another, because I'm sure there's going to be something else that rocks the nation in the next couple months, or maybe next year. We shouldn't wait until a situation like this happen. And a lot of these battles we may not be able to win, but if enough people actually went out there and said something, you know, there's a chance that we can make something happen if celebrities actually use their platform to speak up. And I'm not talking
They're
about
not
just a
going to. They're not going to. They're. I'm telling you right now. Like, generally speaking, celebrities rarely ever voice their opinions about like what's really going on. And then when they do, they're just echoing the same sentiment that the people who cut their checks are saying. So you're never really gonna have a celebrity that is like an A-lister and is a contrarian at that. Like, because at the end of the day, it's like everybody who says, "Oh, Trump is a bad guy and he's racist." Well, shit, that's what everybody's saying. So I'm not going to give you a pat on the back for saying what everybody else is saying, or to really use your resources to make a point. And then even then, a celebrity can do but so much. And then, like, all a celebrity really can do is just raise awareness and shine a light on some specific issue that's going on. This is already a national. Well, I would say like a national thing that's affecting the entire United States. So that it's not like a celebrity would shed light on something that people are not already seeing already.
At this point in time, one of the things I'm noticing is that there's a lot of protests happening. I actually just saw one not too long ago in downtown LA. And my thing for people is I love protesting, and I think we need to do that more often. But we need more people out there actually trying to make meetings with the governors, the state politicians, to get a seat at the table. And the reason why I said that, for instance, I bring this up, it's not related to abortion, but Mano, the rapper, he's part of a group called the Lobby Boys in New York, and it's composed of different rap artists, people in the community, but it's majority the head of the table of this group is celebrity rappers. And they recently had a sit down with the mayor of New York because of this whole drill music that's happening in New York, and the amount of violence that's happening. Kids are getting slaughtered tremendously and at a alarming rate. It's ridiculous. Every day somebody's getting killed by gun violence due to drill music, gang culture and all that stuff. And situations like that, that's why I say we need to get people in the meetings with the people who matter in our state. Because now, hearing people from these cities, from these places that laws like the abortion is going to hit harder, or gang culture violence, we need people in those meetings to talk and address these situations. Because one of the things you said, and I agree, is that a lot of these people are out of touch. They don't know what the American people want, and they aren't caught up on current events. We're living a very positivity world now, being more inclusive, being more aware and appreciative of people of color, women. sexual orientation. We're living in that era. And the problem is we have people running this country or who's been in the same position for decades. Look at Nancy Pelosi, for instance. She's been in freaking politics for damn near 40, 50 years. Joe Biden is another one who's been in politics for 50 years. A lot of these Supreme Court justices are getting reelected every 2, 3 years, and they stay on that thing for 20, 30, 40 years. And there's a problem with, you know, it's not against older people, but people, especially white older people who have certain um, thoughts and opinions that may not correlate with today's time are running this country. And that is the problem. We don't have people who relate to the American people running. How's an 85-year-old white guy who's, like I said, probably racist, probably still feels like women should cook and clean, and has no idea of what the American people want and are facing in today's culture, are making decisions about our government, about our people. That's why I said, for me personally, even if we don't get the whole voting thing right, then there needs to be a limit. Nobody should be running this country for 40 years. Nobody should be in the Supreme Court for 40 years, because your influence, the longer you're on the Supreme Court, the more power you get, the more influence you have. So you might get a guy who is in touch with our generation, with what the people are facing nowadays. And he's up against a long time Supreme Court justice that's been sitting on the panel for 40 years. Who people going to listen to in those meetings? Him or the guy who's been on the board for 40 years? And that's why there needs to be some type of age restriction or term limit. Nobody should be running. Nobody should be holding a seat at the table of a country, at 85 years old. I just don't see how that is feasible. Do you agree with that?
Say that last part again.
I feel like they need to have term limits, and they need to. I'm not trying to be ageism, but they need to get they need to get out with the old and with the new. That's how I feel.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that that's any guarantee that things would be better, because I'm pretty sure to some degree, if I were to research it, there probably are, some younger politicians that are in there, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's not really the age is not necessarily a good indicator of someone's mind and like their mentality and what their agenda is, as far as whatever it is that they have say over, what I'm saying, whatever political contributions that they make to society. So I get what you're saying in a way, but I don't know if that's an actual guarantee. It's like you would probably have to see if a younger demographic of politicians were the majority, what effect that would actually have, and would things be any different. Maybe it would, maybe it won't. But as the older people start to phase out, and then younger people are coming in, maybe these are the relatives of the freaking people that are leaving, if you get what I'm saying. So
I guess my point, what I was making is, it's more likely that somebody who's a little on the younger side, who have their feet on the ground amongst the American people and see the progression that's happening, will understand more and be able to make better informed decisions. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be ageism, because there are some older people that get down with these times. They're all about sexual identity and stop racism and stuff like that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I'm saying is, again, why is somebody who's in the late 70s, early 80s running our country? Because let's be real, most of the time, a lot of older people are stuck in their ways. They are stuck in their ways. And if they feel like, I don't really care about Black people, or women should just be in the house cooking and cleaning, a lot of times as you get older, those principles never change. That's just on the real side. And that's what I mean. Like, they need to get out with the old and with the new, get more fresh blood, younger blood in there, because these are the people that understand what's happening. They see the transition that's happening in America right now. Whereas somebody who's protected, who's been on the board for 40 years, damn near should be retired at a, you know, uh, a retirement home. It's still making ill-informed decisions on our country. And and a lot of the times, like I said, the longer you've had a tenure in the government, the more power and influence you get. So that's why I'm saying there should be term limits. And like I said, ageism too. You shouldn't come into office at 40 and leave at damn near 90 years old, because your perspective is probably not going to shift with the times. And on top of that, we need people who understand the culture, the society we live in now, who could go into these meetings and advocate properly, even if things don't work out the way it should. At least we have somebody in there who can advocate for us, because the reality of it is most Americans aren't going to be at the seat at the table. But if somebody who's already kind of at the cups to the table and understand the time that we living in, and on the younger side, I mean, we have a better chance of making things happen. And then 85-year-old man who probably still has the same idea, a lot, thoughts and um, ideas that he had in the 1950s. So
Right.
do you?
Yeah. Well, a person like that is probably not going to be black, and I'm pretty sure the things that I'd like to see happen, a white person is not going to be the one to ultimately make those decisions. So and it's something that I've said recently, this country, will change eventually, and it's changing right now. But what the country will change into, I wholeheartedly do not expect it to benefit everybody.
Right. And I agree with you. And for me personally, I really don't. I want to get too involved with the identity politics. Me personally, I don't really care if it's black or white. If it's, as long as there's somebody who understands the people and can properly, because no matter your skin tone, some people don't care at all about us. But if we can get somebody in there who can make informed and rational decisions based off their experience with American culture and society nowadays, that would be helpful. Because like you said, how did this even happen? Is because those people sitting at those tables are old. They have certain ideas and thoughts that they never changed. And for them, they probably see women as objects, or, oh, they should be home cooking and cleaning and taking care of the children. And they don't want to see abortions happen, because back then, it probably didn't happen as often. So they are making laws based off what they have an idea of life like was for them when they were younger in the 60s and the 50s. You know what I'm saying? That's why I was saying, like, you gotta get out with the old and with the new, man, because the older you get, the more stubborn you are. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't want to change when they get to a certain age, because they stuck with that way. And I'll say that, you know, like for instance, my mother. I love my mother, but she's in the 60s. The ways that she think, I'm using this as a frame of reference. She has certain ideas that she will never change. She will never change. And we've talked to her about it. We try to get her to change her mind about certain things, and she will absolutely not change, because she's lived with that for 60 plus years. And that's why I'm saying, the older you are, the more the longer you kind of hold the idea that you don't want to let go. So, you know, I I think this is a sad day that, we're living in a society now where the government can control people's lives. And I think for me, I don't care about gun control right now. I don't care about, you know, the other problems, because we only could do it one step at a time. But this one right here, I mean, it's a sad situation for women, especially because now you're telling them that, if you get pregnant, you just got to deal with it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Um, do you have any thoughts on anything?
Not necessarily. I just, want people to ask questions and think critically.
I agree. Let like I said, we live in a time that we need people to be more uh empathetic, be more sensitive, be more caring and understanding to other people. And I don't care whether you're pro-life, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, whatever the case may be. This situation right here is a moment for men and women to stand up for the rights of just human life for women, because this is just the beginning. If they can make laws like this, I mean, there's no limit to what this government can do. And like I said, we shouldn't wait until the next big, thing like this happens before we stand up and say something again. So, um, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it was very controversial. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions about it. And we are two dudes, but we still feel empathetic and we still can side with women in this situation. So, just be ill-informed, be more informed, go out and vote in any race, state, legislative, president, Supreme Court, anything. Get your voice out there and let your voice be heard by these people. So, thank you for coming on, Dimitri. I hope you had a good time talking about this. And like I always say, a helping hand is a better hand. Peace.
Peace.